everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Keynote podcast on speaking engagement. I'm your host, Ryan Catherwood. On the show each week, I try to bring people with lots of different perspectives to education advancement, community building, marketing and communications. And sometimes I know these people from my distant past. Sometimes these are folks I've come across and had the chance to meet in different contexts. And every once in a while, I think I'm going to bring to the show someone who I'd never met before, but just think is going to be an awesome interview and someone you all should know. And of course, I should too. This week, my special guest is Shanna Hocking. And Shanna is the founder and CEO of Hocking Leadership. She is the author of One Bold Move a Day. And she is also a contributor for the Harvard Business Review and Fast Company. I had been following Shanna for years on LinkedIn and thoroughly enjoyed her posts and her musings about leadership and women in the workplace, and her style for coaching and mentorship seems right on point. So I thought I would just ask if Shanna would join me on the Keynote podcast and we could share her thoughts with you all. Thank you so much for listening. I know you'll enjoy my interview with Shanna Hocking. Please do become a member of Speaking Engagement if you're not already. Join us for our book club and our Agora. And we've got several new initiatives that we're lining up this fall that I know you'll enjoy. Thank you so much for listening. Here's my interview with Shanna Hocking. All right, Shanna Hocking, thank you so much for being the keynote on this week's speaking engagement. I really appreciate it.
Ryan, I'm glad to be with you. Thank you.
Shanna, you're one of those folks who I have been connected with for years. We know many of the same people, as we were just discussing before I hit record, but never had the chance to chat with until today. So this is a really fun opportunity for me. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I thought maybe you could start us off by just sharing a little bit about your professional bio and your work that you do today.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you. I found development when I was 18 years old. I worked in the regional development office of my undergraduate alma mater, learned that this was my dream career, what I was meant to do, spent the next 4 years working at my undergraduate alma mater, and then also seeking internships in order to pursue as much as I could in this career. So at 19, I knew I wanted to be director of major gifts when I grew up.
Wow.
And then spent the next 20 plus years working across public, private, and Ivy League universities and academic medicine, some of the best universities in the world. I learned so much, both about fundraising and about leadership. And then I wrote all of that into my first book, One Bold Move a Day, which came out in November 2022.
It's fantastic. What an accomplishment to publish your own book. And
Thank you.
you've really created a great platform. I know you work with a lot of senior leaders in our space. What originally drew you to this work, given that it sounds like you knew what you wanted to do from an early on stage?
Well, I think all of those experiences at all these wonderful places taught me a lot about the kind of leader I wanted to be, and sometimes about the kind of leader that I didn't want to be. And one of the things I kept seeing over and over again was you can be the very best fundraiser, but how you support your colleagues and then eventually how you support your team, to me, is the difference in whether or not we're raising the most money and raising it well. And I didn't think that there was as much attention being paid to that in our profession. And I love this profession so much. And this is what I saw was the opening about how I could serve universities and fundraisers in a new way. And so when I chose to start my own business, I really wanted to focus it on that exclusively. And that is where I spend my time and attention, is about how we lead and caring about the people we lead and not just the fundraising metrics we achieve.
You often talk about networking as a very human-centered construct, which of course it is. But why do so many people still associate networking with something that's transactional or uncomfortable? I suppose those are two different things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like to think about everything we do as human-centered, right? The human-centered side of fundraising, the human-centered side of business now as I run my own firm. But the human-centered side of networking is really where the joy is, because we get to understand what's important to someone else, who they are, what they value, and then how we can help create those opportunities for them. And I think people are missing out by telling themselves a story about how that other person doesn't want to connect with them, and then making it unintentionally all about ourselves instead of really being about how do we serve others better.
Yeah. And when you teach networking, and when I've taught network as someone who's led alumni and career services to students, I mean, it really is about teaching how to be curious, teaching how to ask the right questions, finding out what makes someone tick. And at the very
Yes.
end of the conversation, you ask, what's often the case is they ask you, well, so how can I help you? What can I do for
Yes.
you? It's one of those natural outcomes of being a good listener and asking very good questions. But talk a little bit about what experiences have shaped your own philosophy around relationship building.
Well, this is something I've been told is one of my superpowers, Ryan. And the funny thing about a superpower is you don't always know that it's a strength of yours until it's highlighted by someone else. So I just kind of thought this is what everybody did, right? I have a curiosity, to your good point. I believe in helping others and serving others. And so I just reach out to people that I want to connect with. And I always have. I cold called my way to my first internship at Duke University by dialing a number and asking if they'd be hiring any summer interns. So this has been within me my entire life. And what I've learned is that the majority of people want to help others. They just don't know how to. And so by reaching out and showing something that you're genuinely interested in them or congratulating them on something awesome that they did, you're creating opportunities for them that didn't exist before. So it's really not just about you. It's about them. And I think that's where the joy is missing when we tell ourselves people don't want to do that with us.
Really interesting. I'm sure you found this as well, doing consulting work, that having a really large network is one of the requirements for doing consulting work, and having an ever expanding network that you're able to sort of tap into. And it allows you to have folks who will take your call eventually. But it kind of goes all the way back to job searching. What you just mentioned, you networked, you cold called your way into your first role. And I remember doing the same at the University of Virginia. I worked just before that at a independent school. And I knew that one day I would love to work at UVA, which was close by. And I set out to have one informational interview with someone on the campus, once a month, and set a goal for myself, and did the same with some other institutions. And eventually that networking paid off in that I could reach out to a person who had an open position and say, hey, remember we talked and I expressed to you that I was really passionate about the opportunity to work at your institution. And, that's, I think, being proactive about networking, and long before you actually hope to secure an opportunity is really important. I think about so many people in today's job environment too, that is so tough. You've worked across different environments, higher ed, leadership coaching, and also lots of different types of environments within higher ed. What have those experiences taught you about how careers actually develop?
Well, yes, I have worked across a lot of different types of institutions in higher education and academic medicine. And then now, of course, with my clients in both of those spaces too. Um, I really think that we are in the best environment possible where we can always learn and always access knowledge and always create knowledge and serve knowledge. And again, that I wanted to be a fundraiser when I was 18 and then director of major gifts at 19. And then when I got there, I was like, okay, well, now what do I do? Because I got there pretty early in my career, which I worked very hard for. And I think that was my first learning that, this isn't just about one single title or one single goal. It's about how do I want to continue to develop myself and how do I want to continue to learn. And I never thought I wanted to be in academic medicine. And lots of things contributed to me making that choice. And then when I did, it was such a great way for me to learn and serve a new way in our profession. And now in my work with clients, if I didn't have that academic medicine experience, I probably wouldn't be working with all of the different academic medical centers that I do. So I think the biggest lesson that I can share, even as someone who knew very early on what she wanted to do with her career, is don't make such strong boundaries for yourself that you're not willing to explore and listen and learn. And even when you know with certainty what you want to do, don't hold so tightly to it that you're not looking through those doors when they open or creating those doors for yourself in your career. Because I certainly never thought about starting my own business. And I'm supposed to be a vice president of advancement. That's what we're all working toward. Until I realized I could help so many universities and so many vice presidents of advancement. I just have to look at it a little bit differently.
I was imagining listeners hearing you describe 18-year-old Shauna having a clear sense of wanting to be a major gifts leader. What was it that you discovered about yourself or the profession? Or was it someone that you met that you really admired that had the same role? Talk to me a little bit about what you realized and how you realized it back at that time.
So when I went to college, I wanted to be, a million different things, as we all do. For me, it was a writer, a social worker, a fashion designer, and a rabbi. And so clearly fundraising is all of those things, right? I mean, you're serving people, basically pastoral care. You're asking a lot of questions. You look very nice everywhere that you go. You do a lot of writing. But I also went to college on scholarship and financial aid. It made a meaningful difference in my ability to choose where I was. Well, they chose me, honestly, for where I was able to go. And they were paying $10 an hour in the development office. I didn't even know what that meant, to help prepare for a major donor event. And that night, I was a student ambassador. They let me stand in the back of the room. And Ryan, I describe it as one of those moments in the movies where everything gets fast and slow. And, you start to hear that music in the background. And I was like, oh, I can create meaning out of money. And I can create access for others to achieve more than they ever thought possible through philanthropy. And it was it. I knew right then that this is what I was meant to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. An aha moment that shaped your entire trajectory. You write a lot about visibility in the context around, as senior leader, having a much more visible presence at the office. But I'm just guessing. You tell me, what do you mean when you talk about professional visibility?
Yeah. Well, I do think it's really important to acknowledge that my goal is to support everyone on the org chart, whether they are an early career professional or the most senior chief executive in the office, in terms of creating that visibility. Because one of the things I like to say is that leadership opportunities are not created for you, they're created by you. And that means that you have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to make your contributions known. And I think in the nonprofit space in particular, we're always taught to put the other mission and the institution first. And I think that it can coexist with putting the institution's needs first while also sharing the things that are important to you, because you're a representation of what that mission is. And I think a lot of nonprofits are very hesitant about that. I see less so now than there used to be. And I think that putting yourself out there in whatever capacity that is, whether it's just talking to your boss or a senior leader in the organization or doing that on a social platform like LinkedIn, is one of the necessities in being your own best career advocate.
We live in the attention economy. And when I think about visibility, I very much think about the willingness and the courage to say something that might capture people's attention, to be visible regularly. And LinkedIn for me is an important tool. I'm sure it is for you. But why do so many smart, capable people feel uncomfortable, accessing the attention economy or talking about their accomplishments?
I think some of it is who we are as, development and alumni relations professionals, where we put other people's needs first. We put the mission first. We put the org first. And that's what we're trained to do. And I think in some cases, orgs reinforce that. I certainly can tell you that I have a few scars from having put myself out there when I worked for other institutions, because it wasn't always celebrated. So I think part of it is a real concern that exists in our industry. And then I think the other part of it is we're taught not to put any attention on ourselves. Like, don't say, look at me. Don't say, here's what I've done that's awesome, because it's bragging, and bragging is bad. And I simply think it's just a new way of serving others by sharing the ways that you add value to the organization, to the profession, to the world. And I'd really love to see a shift in how we approach that, particularly in our work, but for anybody who wants to be able to serve in this way.
Everyone has to grapple with the idea of the difference between self-promotion and being authentically visible. I mean, it's never been easier to have a take about something. It's never been easier to create content. It's never been easier to be visible. But it does run the risk of, being a bit too much, and you can kind of see when people are trying a bit too hard. How do you coach leaders about this dynamic, the difference between self-promotion, being authentically visible?
Well, listen, I wrote a whole book about how I've been called too much in my life and career, Ryan. So I would much rather someone genuinely share what is important to them on social and be able to be relatable to people who maybe needed exactly that message that day than to worry about being too much. Because I think there's a very fine line and it's often decided by other people. And frankly, I don't have the energy anymore to keep doing things that other people are going to determine whether it's too much or not enough, because you're always going to be too much to someone else. So I truly believe that if you are standing for something that's important to you, right? You're sharing your take on what's important to you in your work, why you're motivated to do, what you care about, then you do that because it's a representation of who you are. And you let the others do what they need to do and try to focus again on being there for the one person who might have needed that exact message that day.
I feel that I've definitely thought to myself a number of times, like, I am just a little too visible, a little too noisy on social media. But then I think to myself, if they are tired of having me in their feed, then they'll just remove me. But there are lots of other people who are seeking out insights on this particular type of work, and they'll find me, and ultimately everything balances out because the people who want to be in your camp or community find you, and those who don't will just, remove you from their feed. And so it's just the natural balance of things. Like, you can't be frightened or apprehensive about putting yourself out there, I don't think. Talk about how you coach LinkedIn then. I mean, and how has that platform changed professional identity, career development? I imagine you talk about LinkedIn a lot with the folks that you coach.
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think it's one of the frequent questions I get in hallways at conferences, but I don't really talk about it much in my work because, I mean, so much of my conversations are about how do I go share this news with the president, which does nothing to do with LinkedIn.
That's definitely totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, but I will say that people are often curious about, how do you do this thing on LinkedIn, Ryan, that you and I are doing? And I started 18 years ago, which I know because LinkedIn likes to remind you at your anniversary. And, at the time, I was sharing articles that I thought were really great or helpful to our profession. And I'm the kind of person who reads hundreds of articles a week, and my friends don't like when I keep sending them those articles. So I was so grateful that I could just post it on LinkedIn and whoever wanted to see it could see it. And so then it became where I started sharing my own thought leadership. And then it became eventually what it is today, where I'm, sharing 4 times a week and certainly supporting all the things that I think I can with our profession in that format. But what I always say is if you want to get started on LinkedIn, you just have to find something that's important to you, whether it's an article that you resonated with that someone wrote, podcast that you want to share, or it's a couple of paragraphs about something your organization did that you led that you want to feature. And then you just put it out there, and then it becomes about consistency, like anything, consistency over time, because anyone can do something once, but now it's about your follow through. And then it's about your commitment. And then it's about why did you get started? Because if you and I were posting hoping we were going to get a lot of likes, well, the algorithm's going to take that away from us at any point in time. So we have to just keep doing it because we believe it's how we can serve and the best possible way that we can help others.
Do you ever feel the need for that, affirmation from your network when you post? I mean, I still do sometimes. I'll post something. Yeah, I like it. And sometimes I'll post something, I'll write an article or whatever. I'm like, oh, an hour's gone by and, not enough people have liked it. What should I take it down? And then you just kind of move on,
Yes. So that's the part.
How do you feel it?
Right?
Yeah.
So again, I've been posting for a long time. And so, yes, when I first started posting, I would be checking and scrolling and seeing how many likes I got all the time. And it's hard not to define yourself by those metrics. And I would say, especially since I've been running my own firm. But even in the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years, I had to stop looking for other people to affirm what I was doing in the traditional sense. Because I have so many people come up to me, and I'm sure you do too, at every conference to be like, I love what you're sharing on LinkedIn. And you're like, that's funny. You've never once publicly liked any of my posts. And so you have to just do it without looking for applause. You have to do it because you believe this is the right thing to do. This is the thing that you want to represent. And so I still get nervous when I post certain things on LinkedIn, and I still have to convince myself sometimes to do it. And then once in a while, I do get that affirmation. Sometimes it's private, and someone says, you have no idea how much this meant to me today. And that's why I keep going. That's why you keep going, right?
Yeah.
Because somebody needed that. And
Yeah.
that's all we can do is serve one.
You have that feeling, oh, wow, 200 people have read this, but why have, 180 of them not liked, comment, or shared on it?
Well, the
Why,
hotter your
why?
take, the harder it is to like it publicly.
This is true. I've discovered that as well. And, it's the reason why I created Speaking Engagement, to have another forum by which to have these types of conversations. But I want to get into your entrepreneurship. And as a pathway to do that, I actually want to talk a bit more about your book, One Bold Move a Day, because I think it helps set the stage for that. Could you talk a bit about your book and how you thought about it conceptually and the process of writing it? And for those that maybe haven't heard of your book yet, just a little bit about what it's all about.
Thank you. One Bold Move a Day is a practical, actionable roadmap to achieve your personal and professional goals with intention and joy through a single measurable act each day. So I define a bold move as a meaningful action that helps you move forward, learn, and grow. And this is the philosophy that I used for myself as a development leader and leading a team and, managing in all directions and also trying to raise a family and be all the things for my friends and, advance my career, et cetera. And the idea that I could commit to doing one bold move a day. Right? Not 5,000, not 4, just one a day. And it takes intentionality and courage and follow through. And so I started writing this book, what eventually became this book, in 2018 and 2019. And I'm very open to share that I was rejected from every agent that I submitted to. This was something I was writing at 5 a.m. and 11 p.m. while managing a team eventually of 50 and raising a family. And so when you believe something is important to you, you pursue it with your whole heart. You just do it. And so I was very fortunate that after the pandemic happened, I started a podcast called One Bold Move a Day, because I was like, well, if you're not going to take my book, universe, I'm still going to help leaders when they need it most. It was a 6-minute daily podcast. Honestly, I don't know how I did that. Looking back now, I have no idea, but I did. And it was called One Bold Move a Day. And when I got to about 100 episodes, Ryan, I was like, okay, this is too important. I'm going to go back and try again. And that was when I got my book deal. So I turned in the first draft of my manuscript on December 1, 2021, and I resigned from my job that same day. And I had this deep conviction that I was going to pursue, creating this firm and supporting leaders and advancement. But I had 0 clients, and I am the primary breadwinner in our family. And I started my business full time in January 2022. And then the book came out in November 2022. And I was very fortunate, because it's a traditionally published book, and it was in the Barnes & Noble on Fifth Avenue for many years, that I was able to speak to corporate audiences and nonprofit audiences and university audiences, and really have enjoyed. I was even on a keynote last week, still talking about One Bold Move a Day. And it makes me so proud to know that this idea resonates all these years later after the book came out.
Fantastic. What's an example of a bold move?
Well, you and I talking is a bold move, right? We've just talked about 100 on this call already, right? Posting something on LinkedIn is a bold move. Talking to someone that you don't know, but you want to create a genuine relationship with, is a bold move. Cold calling a university and asking if they'll be hiring any interns when there's not a job posted, a bold move. Moving across the country, reconnecting with a mentor, sharing an idea in a meeting. And what I love so much about this framework, and obviously I created it, so I'm a little biased, is that You define what a bold move is for you each day. And the same way that you change and evolve, your bold moves can too. And nobody gets to judge whether or not it's a bold move, including you. So that means there's no such thing as, well, that wasn't bold enough. Nope. It's up to you. And so today, my bold move might be joining you in this conversation and putting ourselves out there to, hundreds and thousands of people. And tomorrow, my bold move might be in reaching out to one of my beloved university presidents who I worked with. And this is now what I'm committing to as my bold move, who I haven't talked to in a really long time, because I talk about him from the keynote stage all the time. And someone asked me, have you told him that you do this? And I haven't. So that's my commitment to tomorrow's bold move right now.
Let's talk a bit more about how your book, One Bold Move a Day, helped you build your Hocking Leadership, your consulting practice, and the connection between the book and how you coach your clients in an ongoing way. I imagine these things are intertwined, but maybe you could share just a little bit about your practice and your team and the organization.
Yeah, amazing. I would love to. So, Hocking Leadership is really focused on supporting leaders in achieving their operational, fundraising, and leadership goals. And that looks like managing in all directions and the many demands that are on, particularly vice presidents of advancement in the world that we're in right now. How am I going to get this buy-in from the president and the board for this vision? How am I going to get my executive team to align to then be able to bring it to life in the organization? And then how am I going to support my middle managers in being able to execute on the strategy that happened? So that's the kind of work that we're doing every day with universities around the country. And the One Bold Move a Day probably actually isn't directly connected to my work, but it's very much directly connected to how I think about the world and how I lead. And so, yes, I've known to say to a senior leader, okay, so what's your bold move on this, right? And I'm known to say, you need to give yourself more credit that you already made that bold move. But the funny thing about writing the book is it was always supposed to be my love letter to the advancement profession in a traditional business bookshelf. And in many ways, that's still what it is. And then Hocking Leadership functions doing what it's doing with, universities and academic medical centers almost independently. But to your point, the intertwine, of course, is how I think about the world and how I encourage other people to celebrate progress and not just outcomes, and to lead from their heart and not just from the spreadsheets.
Mentoring is a big part of what you do. It's also something that you coach with the leaders that you're working with. How do you think leaders should be thinking about mentorship, maybe differently than what they're doing today? How do you help them adjust their thinking around having mentors and being a mentor?
Well, I think that everything that I am is based on the mentors who believed in me and who I sought out and still seek out. And I think you can have mentors sometimes for one day and sometimes for a whole job. And if you're lucky, sometimes for a whole career. And I don't think that you stop having mentors when you get to the corner office or to the very big job. I think we need mentors at every stage. And I think it gets harder as you climb in the organization and the org chart in order to feel like you can ask for help. And yet I know how important it is. And so one of the things that I take very seriously is how I can create a community of peer mentors for vice presidents of advancement so that they don't have to necessarily ask for help, that it's created for them, and that they can learn from each other in safe and meaningful ways. And because I think peer mentors are amazing. And if you're willing to be genuine and authentic and transparent, you can learn a lot and you can serve a lot too.
Notice your emphasis is on women and women taking action. Do you work exclusively with women? And if so, why?
So I wrote One Bold Move a Day for women in particular. That was really important to me because there are very few books, business books, written by women. And so I wanted to write our story in advancement in a traditional business book. And it says Women in Business on the back. And it is ranked on Amazon in Women in Business. And so that was important to me to be counted, but also important because it doesn't need to be this hard to be a woman in the workplace, and it still is. And so I wanted to acknowledge that there are different barriers for women, and particularly for women of color. But I've had a million men say to me, this book was really helpful to me. So that's my goal always. I want to serve everybody, but I do want to acknowledge that it's a different experience for women. And so when I think about that with my clients, I think about it the same way. The men who work with me, I think, come to work with me and Hocking Leadership because they believe in the human-centered approach to advancement. They believe in being a human first, and then a fundraiser, and then a leader. And so I think that whether women or men or anybody coming to work with us, they are saying they care deeply about how they lead, and they're willing to put that on paper. And yes, I'm very fortunate to work with many women vice presidents of advancement in particular, but certainly not exclusively.
What do you think some of the men listening to this conversation might not appreciate about the unique challenges that women face leading advancement teams?
Yes, well, this was not planned at all, but right above
You're
me
right.
is
This
the
is off
bold.
script.
No, I mean
I
this
made
in
a
the best
bold.
way.
I
Like,
made a bold move. I asked you an
I
off
love
script
it.
question.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's just that, so the Bold Blueprint is the research that Hocking Leadership put out last year.
Okay.
And it was a research study about women chief advancement executives in higher education and academic medicine. And I wrote this, this study in order to support women leaders, to support the next generation of women who want to go into these leadership roles, but also to provide clarity and insight, both whether for, presidents of universities or men vice presidents of advancement or senior leaders who want to be a part of this together, because it will require all of us working together in order to change our profession and leadership in our profession for the better, is that the experiences of women are different. There are many similarities, but they are different. I had a woman tell me in our study process that, she was setting up a visit for her university president at a men-only golf club. And she wasn't allowed to go, obviously, to the visit, and she wasn't allowed to get the relationship advanced in a way that was meaningful. And I don't think that people even think about some of those things. It just kind of comes for granted. Like, yeah, I'm going to go play golf and we're going to go, close the gift and we're going to go have the conversation. But we are literally not included in all of those conversations, even if we're the architects. And we don't have to be at every table, but we have to be acknowledged that some tables don't include us still. And that sometimes even when we're at the table, we're categorized as being different, right? Too much, too something, too whatever, in a way that is not intentional always, but it does happen. And so for us to strengthen our profession, it's going to take all of us playing a role in this.
What do you think organizations get wrong when it comes to leadership development?
Well, I often think people believe that if you put really great people at a table, things will happen. And I often think that people feel like if I invest in fundraising, then I will see the ROI. And I think what's missing is when you invest in leaders, the results will follow. And because we're not taught how to be leaders. We're taught how to become expert alumni engagement experts and expert fundraisers. But we're not taught how to be leaders. And it does take investment, and it does take time, and it does take compassion. And I think that it requires a different approach. And I'm so, so excited to see how many universities are getting this more and more now, or at least the leaders in those universities.
What are they doing differently, do you think, those that are modernizing their approach to leadership development?
Yeah. So I think that there's this beautiful level of transparency and willingness to say, I don't have it all figured out, which takes a lot of bravery to say, because we've been taught all of our careers that the leaders have the answers. And so we've made that so that leaders get put on a pedestal. And really, the leaders that I see that are redefining leadership are at the table with their colleagues, their teams, and they're saying, listen, I have a vision, but I want to know your input. I have an idea, but I want to know what's missing. And I think those are the strongest leaders of all, who understand that they can gain from the people they chose to be with them at the table.
We're in a crazy moment here for our world with AI adjusting how we think about work and what future opportunities look like. I mean, just that topic alone is one we could spend all day on. And when you interact with leaders that are in the advancement space and they're talking about how AI is reshaping work really quickly, how are they thinking about it? And how do you think that changes career development?
So I think it's a major topic of conversation for everybody. but everyone is kind of waiting for someone else to go first. I think that the universities that I've seen who've wanted to keep it front and center have created metrics to create opportunities for progress because, of course, they want to reach their goals. And I think that they've created clarity on expectations, right? Any time that 500 people in an office have to guess at what the rules are, we are going to end up with a lot of different interpretations. And so the universities that are saying, look, we don't have this all figured out right now, but here's where you can use Gemini or, Claude, right? And here's where we would like you not to. And here's where we need you to admit when you've done it. And here's where we don't. And here's what we're willing to, right? Please don't put the entire donor database into the system and write all of your acknowledgments, or that's okay here. And here's how to do it. I think that's what universities and advancement organizations are doing better, right? To create clarity amongst all of this complete, chaos in this world. And I think also in terms of career advancement, we all have to be figuring out new skills all the time, right? You and I have been in this field for a really long time. And still, we relatively, God willing, have a really long life and career ahead of us. So we're in this very interesting position, Ryan, where I think our generation, we had to learn social media. Like that was a thing that was coming out and then figure that all out. And so we have to do that same investment in ourselves to keep reskilling and to keep learning in order to remain relevant, but also to lead organizations and lead missions. And then what is that going to do for career advancement? Well, I don't hope we outsource everything to AI because I think what makes us very special, both in our work and in the world, is who we are as people. And so I hope we can figure out how to do the appropriate blend of all of those things.
I began using Claude Cowork yesterday as just another resource to help me accomplish some of the tasks that I had been doing on my own to see whether AI could help me. And I realized I'm just scratching the surface with
But you tried
AI.
it. That was your bold
But I
move of the
did,
day.
yeah. And speaking of, and now I need a tip every day on using it. I think a bold move on using AI. How do you go ahead? Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, well, I don't know that I can write that book, but I will learn whatever you share.
Well, let's talk a little bit about young people who are in our profession, as they're thinking about the future. And how are you coaching leaders to groom young folks and get them excited and passionate about this work and advancement and being part of the community building process when it feels like it's such an unstable environment? And you've got universities closing, and we just published a keynote this week on speaking engagement from a VP advancement at Trinity Christian College, who's was sharing about what it's like to be working with a school that's closing. And, it's really a tough industry to be in right now, higher ed, and threading the needle between letting our donors know how difficult this environment is while not turning them off to the future investments that, would keep the school moving forward and creating more generous community. Talk a little bit about the framing that you have in your mind for younger professionals in our space and how they may want to be thinking about what that career growth should look like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so heartened by how many early career professionals know what advancement and development are. To your point, you were like, how did you even know what development was? And I don't know, it was a gift and a miracle at the same time. But, people, now it's you can major in it and you can get certificates in it. And there's so much professionalization and awareness building that's happened in the last 20 years in our profession. So I think that early career professionals are looking at the uncertainty and instability of the world, not just higher education, but the world around them. And what we know is that from research is that they are looking for meaning in a way that every generation before them, who probably has forgotten, but every generation before them also graduated with that same searching for meaning. And we offer that in spades. We offer that so much more than so many other places. And we have to make sure that we're telling our own story about why this is such a great profession. Yes, it is uncertain and unstable, and still there's this. And I am, such a delighted storyteller. And I know that you are too, right? We believe in what we're doing. And I think it's the greatest profession in the world. I do think it's really, really hard right now, and I don't want to minimize that. But I think it means it's even more important to pursue um, however we can and however we can help other people see how they create meaning in it with us.
So just a few quick fire questions for you. What's the biggest networking mistake people make?
Uh, what can this person do for me versus how can I support and serve the person I'm meeting with?
It's also the networking mistake is also thinking that a relationship is going to yield immediate results as
Right.
opposed to like banking that and using it later on and or hoping that it might be useful later on.
And even if
What
it's
is
not useful, right? It's just about creating this genuine connection is powerful on its own. And if it becomes useful at some point, then it magnifies.
Yeah, you just never know when a relationship is going to really blossom and that conversation you had will take you in a different direction that you never imagined. What's one thing professionals should stop doing immediately?
Assuming that their good work speaks for itself.
I'll say more about that. I know this is a quick fire, but
Yeah, but it's
what should
important.
you do if you are making it appear as though that you're letting your work speak for itself?
I mean, I have so many people at every single level, early career, all the way up to vice president, who say, I I forgot that I had to advocate for myself. I just knew I was doing good work and I thought other people would notice. And they don't notice, or they write a different story, or they don't believe it's attributable to you. And again, at every single level, I have seen this. And it is something I would like to see everybody take more intention behind, that we cannot do the good work, but don't let it speak for itself. It's your job to advocate for how you're adding value.
Yeah. I guess it's such a tricky one when you're inside of an organization to do this in a way that is going to create the impression that one might hope. Or well, like is there a way to do this
Yes.
effectively?
Yes. So the way that I teach leaders, again, at any organization level, is connect your work to the organization's goals, to the organization's outcomes. So, I developed a new alumni engagement initiative for this particular population, and we saw a 20% increase in growth over the last 6 months. Great. That's not bragging. That is adding value and being clear about how your contributions add value. And it's connected to the organization's goals and outcomes.
Not the self, not the ego, right? It's about the
You can have a little
organization.
bit too. I don't want to pretend like we shouldn't be proud of our work. We should be. We just need to make sure
Yeah.
that we don't think that our work, just being proud of our work and doing awesome work, is enough.
What is an overrated LinkedIn trend that you have noticed?
Um, so I don't want to dissuade anyone from posting on LinkedIn, since we just talked about this, but I'm not a huge fan of the every rainbow I saw, every bowling pin I saw reminds me of leadership, and here's how.
Hmm. Every time a thing happens that makes the news, someone twists it into a leadership lesson.
Well, like if you're a PR person and you're in marketing and you want to tell me a story about leadership and what you wish they had done differently or what they did awesome, that's one thing. But I think we feel this pressure to make everything so grandiose. And I think where LinkedIn is awesome and fun is when you are just saying the kind of thing that you would say to a colleague or to a friend about something that's important to you and why it's important to you.
All right, last one here. What gives you hope about our younger generation of professionals that are coming out of college right now and getting settled into the workforce?
I think we're going to create more human workplaces that are focused on meaning and not outcomes. And I'm here for it. And I am learning and watching and loving this focus on the people side of what we do.
Yeah. It's funny. It's the more we allow AI to shape the work, the more essential human connections are going to become. And I think that is a commonality amongst the people who are imagining, how we're moving forward in the workplace and a consistent theme I hear from experts. And I really hope that that's true. Like, I really hope that amongst all of the noise and the chaos of how AI will be shaping our world, that a focus on relationships is one that continues to thrive.
Well, I'm very glad to create a relationship with you today. I'm excited about what you're doing for our profession and the world, and I'm here to support you.
Shanna Hocking, thank you so much for being on the Keynote podcast on speaking engagement. It's great to meet you, great to have you, and thank you for sharing your views.
Thank you.